And flying on in is our leader of the Bat Tribal deck. It is Zoraline, Cosmos Caller. 1 generic, 1 white, and 1 black for a 3/3 legendary creature Bat Cleric. Flying Vigilance. Whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain 1 life. All those triggers are separate for each individual bat attacking. Whenever Zoraline enters or attacks, you may pay a white and a black and pay 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. We're going to be swinging in, have a lot of Bat Tribal going on here. We're going to be returning things from the graveyard with finality counters on them, taking them finality counters off. It's going to be a great time. I love this deck. Just a fun jank bat deck. And for our 28 creatures, we have Kumbal, Consult of Allocation, Essence Channeler, and Life Creed Duo. Kumbal, 1 generic, 1 white, and 1 black for a 2/3. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. A little bit of life gain off your opponents, kind of slowly drain them down. I mean, come on, we're playing Bat Tribal. We need some stacksy kind of things here. Essence Channeler, 1 and 1 white for 2/1. As long as you've lost life this turn, Essence Channeler has Flying and Vigilance. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Essence Channeler. When Essence Channeler dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Every time we be gaining life, every trigger of life gain, no matter the amount, we'll put a +1/+1 counter on him. And then when we lose life, which we have ways to ping ourselves, we can give him Flying and Vigilance on command. Life Creed Duo, 1 white and 1 other for flying. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life for a 1/2. Creatures coming in, gain his life. Next up we have Star Charter, Darkstar Augur, and Moonstone Harbinger. Star Charter, 3 generic and a white for a 3/1. Flying, at the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This kind of just helps us search for creatures, and most of our bats are going to be 3 power or less. Darkstar Augur, 2 generic and a black for a 2/3, has Offspring for 1 black, which means I could pay an additional black, so a total of black, black, and 2 generic to create a 1/1 token copy of it. Flying, at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its mana value, so a Bat Dark Confidant. Really great for advantage, really great to Offspring it, but you gotta be a little bit careful with the life loss, but we're gonna be gaining so much it'll make up for it. Moonstone Harbinger, 2 generic and a black for a 1/3, flying, Death Touch. Whenever you gain or lose life during your turn, bats you control get +1/+0 and gain Death Touch on the turn. This ability triggers only once each turn. Really nice. We get trigger life gain, give all of our bats Death Touch and buff them up just a tiny bit. Then we have Starlit Soothsayer, Starscape Cleric, and Valley Rockcaller. Starlit Soothsayer, 2 generic and a black for a 2/2, flying at the beginning of your end step. If you gained or lost life this turn, Surveil 1, so we get the Surveil trigger. Some of these guys are in here just because they're bats, and they help trigger our commander. But the Surveil one is nice. Starscape Cleric, 1 generic and 1 black for a 2/1, Offspring, 2 generic and a black for a total cost of 2 black and 3 generic to make a 1/1 token copy of it when it enters, which you want to do. Flying, this creature can't block. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And so all those triggers from Zoraline are all separate. So if you got 5 bats out, right, you attack with all 5 bats. They each gain you 1 life. You each get 1 ping of this, so boom, 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 boom. You get 2. If you Offspring them and you got 2 of them out, it's boom, 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 boom. All right. And then Valley Rockcaller, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/3 menace. Whenever Valley Rockcaller attacks, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of other squirrels, bats, lizards, and rats you control. He's not a bat, so he won't trigger our commander, but he does have a way better trigger. So for each bat that we control, we're gonna get X life, and they're gonna lose X life. He's a friend of the bats. You can see it right there in the picture. Friend of the bats. You got to be in here. Then we have Moonrise Cleric, Skeletal Vampire, and Sturge. Moonrise Cleric, 1 generic and hybrid Orzhov. So 2 hybrid Orzhovs for a total of 3 CMC for a 2/3 flying. When Moonstone Cleric attacks, you gain 1 life. So we just get an extra life off of, him attacking with the Zoraline. We'll get 2 total, 1 from him, 1 from Zoraline, and he's a bat. Skeletal Vampire, 4 generic and 2 black for a 3/3 vampire skeleton, not a bat. Flying, when Skeletal Vampire enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 black creature tokens with flying. Bats. Pay 3 and 2 black, sacrifice a bat, create 2 1/1 black bat creature tokens with flying, sack a bat, regenerate Skeletal Vampire. So we can pour a lot of mana into this guy to make bat tokens, and I know it's not the best, but this is supposed to be bat themed, and this guy makes bats, and it makes bats you know, better than anything else that I can find, but it's so much mana to pour into him. But he's good for the theme. That's why we love him. That's why we have him. And then Sturge, 1 black for a 1/1 flying. Sturge can't block. Blood Drain, pay 1 generic and a black, pay 1 life, sacrifice Sturge, draw a card. So we could draw a card off him, but it's just in here because it fits the bat thing. Up next we have Ballistica Screecher, Gummag Swiftwing, Marauding Blight Priest. Ballista Screecher, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/2. Flying has Extort. It means whenever you cast a spell, you can pay Hybrid Orzhov. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. So Commander will be pinging everybody for 1, and we will gain 3 if we pay that extra white or black off of every spell we cast. Gumrag Swiftwing, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/2. Flying, first strike haste. It's a bat. Marauding Blight Priest, 2 generic and 1 black for a 3/2 Vampire Cleric, not a bat, but whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. We're going to be having a lot of different triggers for life gain, and all those separate triggers will ping all of our opponents. Then we have Creeping Bloodsucker, Malakir Familiar, and Rune Lurker Bat. Creeping Bloodsucker, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, Creeping Bloodsucker deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way, so a free extort every upkeep. Malakir Familiar, 2 generic and a black for a 2/1 flying. Death Touch, whenever you gain life, Malakir Familiar gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it does not say that it only happens once per turn, which is beautiful because if we get a team of 5 bats, including Malakir Familiar, so Malakir Familiar and 4 other bats attacking, we've got Zoraline's attack triggers going on the stack. When we're going to want all of those to resolve, which they will, before damage, and it's just like, boom, trigger gain life, boom, Malakir Familiar, boom, gain life, boom, Malakir Familiar. We can pump this guy up huge, and if we can somehow get lifelink onto him, that would be sick. Ruin Lurker Bat, 1 white for a 1/1 flying lifelink at the beginning of your end step. If you descended this turn, scry 1. So I mean, I guess we would descend sometimes, but it's a flying lifelink 1/1 bat. That's what he's here for. Up next we have Sanguine Evangelist, Aclazot's Deepest Betrayal, Deep Cavern Bat. Sanguine Evangelist, 2 generic and a white for a 2/1, has Battle Cry, which we don't care about, but we do care about when Sanguine Evangelist enters the battlefield or dies, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. Ways to make bats. Aclazot, Deepest Betrayal, 2 black and 3 generic for a 4/4 flying lifelink. Whenever Aclazot attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. Whenever opponent discards a land card, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. Once Aclazot dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. And I think it just turns into a land with some requirement, some fulfillment that you have to meet to turn it back into Aclazot's. It's the Bat God. We have to have the Bat God in the Bat deck. Deep Cavern Bat, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/1 flying lifelink. When Deep Cavern Bat enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it until Deep Cavern Bat leaves the battlefield. This is more of a like 4 of in the standard meta right now as of the time of recording this, but we have to have it because it's flying lifelink and it's a bat. And it lets us take some from their hand. I mean, it's so sick. Then we have Roaming Throne, Regal Bloodlord, and Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Roaming Throne, you know him, you love him. 4 generic for a 4/4 with Ward 2. As Roaming Throne enters, choose a creature type. We're going to pick Bat. You could also pick Vampire for some of the Drainers, specifically if you wanted to. But I would most of the time pick Bat. Roaming Throne is a chosen type in addition to its other types. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. We just double up on all the life gain triggers. If you do choose Vampire, then you could double up on all of the Drain triggers. Regal Bloodlord, 3 generic, a white and a black for a 2/4 flying at the beginning of each end step. If you gain life this turn, create a 1/1 black bat creature token flying. Beautiful, we love that. Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, 2 generic and 1 black for a 1/3. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Vampire Pinger, pay 3 and 2 black creature you control, gain lifelink at the end of turn, which is just great, enabling all of our bats to gain us life from lifelink and off of Zoraline triggers. And then we have Soul Warden, Mirror Entity, and Karlov of the Ghost Council. Soul Warden, 1 white for a 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. So this is all over the battlefield, from yours, from your opponents, whatever. Gain the 1 life. That's a good trigger to get. Mirror Entity, 2 generic and 1 white for a 1/1 shapeshifter. It has changeling, so it is a bat. We can pay X into it until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. So it makes our whole board bats. Makes your base power and toughness +X+X, and then if we find a way to give them lifelink, pour a bunch of mana into it, pretty freaking sick. Karlov of the Ghost Council, 1 white and 1 black for a 2/2. Whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Karlov of the Ghost Council. You will be gaining individual triggers. You won't be gaining like huge dumps of life at once. It's not going to be like 1 trigger for 10 life. You're going to get like 10 triggers for 1 life. So you're going to have a lot of individual life gain triggers. So you're going to be putting counters on this guy like it's no tomorrow. I think I've gotten over like 200 counters on this guy at one time. But then you can pay a white and a black and remove 6 of those counters from him and just exile target creature. Just boom, just like that. It's freaking awesome. And then last but not least, we have Ghastly Gloom Hunter, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/1 zombie bat. Has kicker, 3 generic and a black for a total cost of 2 black and 4 generic. Has flying and lifelink, and if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, so it becomes a 3/3. I don't know if freaking 6 total mana for a flying lifelink 3/3 is worth it, but the lifelink is really nice. Plus, it's a bat. We need it. For our 7 instance, we have Anguished Unmaking, Batwing Broom, and Riot Control. Anguished Unmaking, 1 generic, a white and a black for exile target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life, hits anything, exiles it. Pretty sweet. Batwing Broom, 1 generic and a hybrid Orzhov. Prevent all combat damage. It would be dealt this turn if white was spent to cast Batwing Broom. Each player loses 1 life for each attacking creature he or she controls. If black was spent to cast Batwing Broom, do both if Orzhov was paid. I freaking love this card. I had no idea that it existed. It's just a nice protector, save your butt, it's cheap, and it'll make your opponents pay for swinging out with a token deck at you. But it's thematic. Batwing Broom, come on now, and that art is sick. Riot Control, 2 generic and a white for you gain 1 life for each creature your opponents control. Prevent all damage it would be dealt to you this turn. Another instant speed protector to save our butt. Our creatures aren't very strong, so we're going for mostly the longer game with the life gain. Up next we have Swords to Plowshares, Stroke of Midnight, and Generous Gift. This is all instant speed removal suite right here. Swords to Plowshares, you know it, you love it. Exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. Stroke of Midnight, 2 generic and a white, destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 1/1 white human creature token. Generous Gift, 2 generic and a white, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. We really tried to stick with most of these except for Swords and Path, which is next, to keep the text to target non-land permanents or target permanents. That way you hit anything you wanted to. And then of course, last but not least, Path to Exile. Exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card. Put that card on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle for 1 white. Not really much more to say about it. For our 5 sorceries, we have Starfall Invocation, Read the Bones, and Exsanguinate. Starfall Invocation, 3 generic and 2 white for destroy all creatures. If the gift was promised, return a creature card put into your graveyard this way from the battlefield under your control. You can give somebody a card as you cast this. They will draw the card before the spell resolves. Read the Bones, 2 generic and a black, scry 2, then draw 2, lose 2. Just little card draw in here. Exsanguinate, 2 black and X. Each opponent loses X life and you gain life equal to the life lost this way, which is pretty sick. You know, you pay 7 for this, put 5 into the X, everybody loses 5, which isn't a whole big deal, but you'll gain 15, and that's if you don't have any doublers out. And then lastly, we have Damn and Debt to the Debtless. Damn! 2 black, destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. You could overload Damn for 2 generic and 2 white, and then you change its text from target to each, so board wipe. Debt to the Debtless. It's 2 white, 2 black, and X. Each opponent loses 2 times X life. You gain life equal to life lost this way. It's more expensive than Exsanguinate, but it also does 2 times, so pretty nice. For our 13 enchantments, we have Boon Reflection, Cleric Class, and Lunar Convocation. Boon Reflection, 4 generic and a white. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. Beautiful. Cleric Class, 1 white. For a enchantment class, if you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. Pretty cool. We can level up to level 2. 3 generic and a white. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Can trigger a whole bunch of times since all Zoraline triggers are separate. And then we can level it up again for 4 generic and a white. When this class becomes level 3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You gain life equal to its toughness. That's not going to be really, you know, huge deal. I mean, we could recur one of our creatures that we couldn't get back with Zoraline, but the life gain off the toughness isn't going to be too big because we don't have anything super huge. And then Lunar Convocation, Orzhov, so white and black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. Pings everybody. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained and lost life this turn, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. We can activate its ability, paying 1 generic and a black to pay 2 life and draw a card, thus fulfilling the life loss, and we'll definitely be gaining every turn. Then we have Sanguine Bond, Leyline of Hope, and Authority of the Console. Sanguine Bond, 3 generic and 2 black. For whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, 1/2 of our combo. Leyline of Hope, 2 generic and 2 white. If Leyline of Hope is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. As long as you have at least 7 life more than your starting total, creatures you control get +2/+2. Helps buff up our bats, helps gets bigger life gain triggers, and we gain an additional life off of all the Zoraline triggers. Authority of the Console is 1 light. Creatures your opponents control enter tapped. Whenever a creature your opponent controls enters, you gain 1 life. Slow them down a little bit and give us that life gain. Then we have Phyrexian Arena, Black Market Connections, and Exquisite Blood. Phyrexian Arena, 1 generic and 2 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Get us some card draw. Black Market Connections, 2 generic and a black. For at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1 or more. Create a treasure token, lose 1, draw a card, lose 2, create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling, you lose 3 life. So it'll make us bats. If we need triggers, we can draw cards and we can make mana to ramp. Exquisite Blood, 4 generic and a black. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. The other half of our combo with Sanguine Bond and just any of our pingers that we have in here. Up next we have Etchings of the Chosen, Case of the Uneaten Feast, and Blind Obedience. Etchings of the Chosen, 1 generic and Orzhov, white and black. As Etchings of the Chosen enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. We pay generic, sack a creature of the chosen type. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Buffs our bats up a little bit, and we can kill one of the tokens to keep Zoraline or one of the more important bats alive. Case of the Uneaten Feast, 1 white. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Sweet. When we solve it, we gain 5 or more life this turn, and when it's solved, we can sack it to give creature cards in our graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard until end of turn. Blind Obedience, 1 generic and 1 white. It has Extort, and artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Gives us that Extort ability on there to gain life, and then it slows down our opponents a little bit. And then lastly, we have Touch of the Spirit Realm, 2 generic and a white. For an enchantment, when Touch of the Spirit Realm enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until Touch of the Spirit Realm leaves the battlefield. So some removal for us, but we can also channel it and discard it to exile target artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. We have this for like our Skeletal Vampire, where we can blink him, make some bats. It can also protect our own creatures or be used as removal, so it's very versatile for us. For our 2 Planeswalkers, we have Liliana of the Dark Realms and Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. Liliana of the Dark Realms, 2 generic and 2 black. Planeswalker, +1, search your library for a swamp card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. A little bit of ramp. -3, target creature gets +X/+X or -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. So we can use it to buff one of our lifelinkers, or we can use it to remove one of our opponent's creatures. And then -6, which you'll most likely never get to. You get an emblem with swamps you control, have tap, add 4 black to your mana pool, which would be pretty cool if it happened, but you know. Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord, 2 generic and an Orzhov, white and black. For a legendary Planeswalker Sorin, as long as it's your turn, creatures and Planeswalkers you control have lifelink. Aw, sick. +2, Sorin's Vengeful Bloodlord deals 1 damage to target player or Planeswalker. -X, return target creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a vampire in addition to its other types, so we can reanimate stuff again. But mostly it's just here to give everything lifelink, which is pretty sick. For our 10 artifacts, we have Patchwork Banner, Well of Lost Dreams, and Maskwood Nexus. Patchwork Banner, 3 generic. For when it enters, choose a creature type. We're going to pick bats. Creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1. Taps add 1 mana of any color. Color fixing, buff for our bats. Pretty sick. Well of Lost Dreams, 4 generic. Whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained. If you do, draw X cards. So after our life gain, we get some mana left over. We can draw cards with it. Maskwood Nexus, 4 generic. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. Pay 3, tap it. Make a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with changeling. We can make more bats, and then everything in our deck becomes bats. Even the vampires. They're all bats now. Everybody's a bat. Hooray! Up next we have Bontu's Monument, Soul Ring, and Orzhov Signet. Bontu's Monument, 3 generic. Black spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Reduces our black spells, and we gain in life, making them lose life. Soul Ring, 1 generic. For tap, add 2 colors. Pretty self-explanatory there. You need the ramp. Orzhov Signet, 2 generic. Pay 1, tap, filter it into Orzhov. Ramp again. Up next, Herald's Horn, Talisman of Hierarchy, and Staff of the Death Megas. Herald's Horn, 3 generic. When it enters, choose creature type. We'll be picking bats. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. Perfect. Beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. Getting those extra creatures off the top. Talisman of Hierarchy, 2 generic. Tap, add a colorless, or tap to add white or black. Deals 1 damage to you. Need the ramp. Staff of the Death Megas, 3 generic. Whenever you cast a black spell or a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. A little extra life gain. And last but not least, well, maybe least, Staff of the Sun Magus. The same thing as the Death Magus. 3 generic. Whenever you cast a white spell or a plains enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life. Just throw that little life gain triggers in there. For our 34 lands, we have Lunan Power Village, Mudflap Village, and 3 Tree City. Lunan Flower Village, tapped out a colorless, tapped out a white, only for creatures. Or we could pay 1 and a white, tap it, sack it, look at the top 6, reveal any bat, bird, mouse, or rabbit cards from among them, put 1 into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Mudflap Village, we could tap it for a colorless, tap for a black, only for creatures, pay 1 of the black, tap, sack, return, target bat, lizard, or rat, or squirrel card from your graveyard to your hand. 3 Tree City, as 3 Tree City enters, choose a creature type. We're going to be picking bats, tap to add a colorless, or we could pay 2 and tap it, choose a color, and then add an amount of mana of that color equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type. Up next we have Forsaken Sanctuary, Reflecting Pool, and a Plains. Forsaken Sanctuary enters the battlefield tap, taps roars off. Reflecting Pool, we can tap it to add 1 mana of any type that the land we control could produce. And then Plains, we have 7 basic Plains in this deck. Up next we have Basic Swamp, Command Tower, and Bajuga Bog. Basic Swamp, we also have 7 basic swamps in this deck. Command Tower, add 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. Sick. Bajuga Bog enters tapped. Exile target player's graveyard when it enters. Tap, add a black. Then we have Caves of Quelos, Tainted Field, and Witch's Cottage. Caves of Quelos, tap, add a colorless, or tap, add Orzhov. Caves deal 1 damage to you when you tap it for a white or a black. Tainted Field, tap, add a colorless, or add Orzhov, white or black. Activate only if you control a swamp. Witch's Cottage, tapped, add a black, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps. When it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. A little bit of recursion. Then we have Rogue's Passage, Scoured Barrens, and Shine Shadow Snarl. Rogue's Passage, tapped, add a colorless, or we can pay 4. Tap it, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Good for getting things through. If we pump and life gain him. Scoured Barrens enters tapped. When it does enter, we gain 1 life. Get that life gain trigger. Taps for white or black. Shine Shadow Snarl. That's hard to say 5 times fast. As it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a plains or a swamp card from your hand. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for white and black. Then we have Spymaster's Vault, Nesting Grounds, and Desolate Mire. Spymaster's Vault enters the battlefield tapped unless we control a swamp. We can tap to add a black, or we can pay a black, tap it, target creature you control connives X, or X is the number of creatures that died this turn. We draw X cards, then discard X cards. Put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each non-land card discarded this way. Pump up a little bit, get some card draw. Nesting Grounds, tap, add a colorless, or pay 1 tap, move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent, activate only as a sorcery. So we get those finality counters with Zoraline. We can use this to take those counters from our creatures and put them onto our opponent's creatures. Desolate Mire, 1 generic tap, add Orzhov. Then we have Path of Ancestry, Vault of the Archangel, and Crystal Grotto. Path of Ancestry enters battlefield tap. Tap, add 1 mana any color your commander's color identity. When the mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with my commander, your commander, our commander. Scry 1. Vault of the Archangel, tapped, add a colorless, or we can pay 2 and a white and a black, so 4 total. Tap it, creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. Every single creature we control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. Pretty sick. Crystal Grotto, when it enters the battlefield, scry 1, tap, add a colorless, or we can filter through it. And then lastly, we have Bright Climb Pathway, tap, add a white, and on the reverse side, if you need it, it's also a swamp. I can't remember the name of it, but it also tapped, add a black. So it's whatever you need when you need it. It can be a plains when you need it, or a swamp when you need it. Alright, and that concludes the end of our baddie video. Tell us what you thought about our girl, our bat bestie, Zoraline. It's a really fun deck. I really love to play it. It's kind of janky, but you know, that's fun. I know there's a lot of improvements we can make, so I want to hear from you guys. What could you include to keep the baddie fun of the deck while also making it stronger and more consistent? Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. I'm still begging in between this video and the last video. I haven't got off and on my knees, you know. That sounded wrong. Anyway, have a great day.